G'day. Let's talk about Mauramurray some more, because that half-an-hour episode yesterday wasn't enough. So that was Mauramurray Found Media. I couldn't sleep last night, thinking about 21 years that she's been gone. So I ended up reading James Renner's 2016 book on the subject, True Crime Addict. I love the Norman Rockwell-esque Main Street down the bottom here. It's a nice touch. How I lost myself in the mysterious disappearance of Mauramurray. I was just going to read like the first chapter, actually just the preface. But it had me hooked and I ended up reading the whole thing. Who needs sleep anyway? Even loved the cool illustrations of places of interest. The prologue. I was happy to see that it starts right where Butch Atwood enters the story. How do you start the story of Mauramurray? I guess right at the accident. Butch Atwood almost made it home. It was dark on the wild Mindshock, but the lights of Atwood's school bus pushed back the night and reflected off the walls of snow gathered on either side of the two-lane blacktop. It had been a long day carting kids to the ski slopes in Conway, almost over. It was the last moment of peace for Butch Atwood. Great opening. That's the story, that's the beginning. Chapter 1 ensues, where we hear about James Renner, a struggling journalism, where his career doesn't pay as much as it used to. He's been fired. He's found himself in a strip club. We hear about relatable things like meeting his wife, Julie, but then we hear about, in my personal opinion, unrelated things like going to a strip club. Like, I'm a happily married man, and I assume James Renner is too. Just no explanation about this. Maybe I'm the odd one out. He's reading the book, Stieg Larsson's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and then this stripper just happens to have a dragon tattoo. He's not shocked. He doesn't call it coincidences. It's called a fearful symmetry in this book. And that phrase, a fearful symmetry, comes back time and time again within these pages, making you think that there is a framework to the universe, especially in mysterious things. The stripper tells him about a mysterious murder from her past, and this reinvigorates him, which is what most people get after going to the strip club, I suppose. Reinvigoration. Chapter 2. Chapter 2 begins with him at the Nervous Dog Coffee Club, and the barista there informs him that she was an anonymous source about a political scandal that he broke. Chapter 3, he might be a sociopath. He watches a 2020 episode on the disappearance of Mauramurray and is hooked. So many unanswered questions. And then, as he proceeds throughout these pages, the case becomes more unanswerable, with even more strange questions. Page 24. Many of the key people involved in Maura's investigation had scattered to the wind by the time I got involved. The lead detective, John Scarenza, was retired. The chief of police in Haverhill, Jeff Williams, was no longer chief. Maura's mother, Laurie, had passed away too. She died on Maura's birthday in 2009. We hear that Butch Atwood, the bus driver, has passed away. I wonder if James Renner had got involved back in like 04, 05. I think he could have solved this case. He spoke to all the right people that were still around and asked all the right questions. There was just too much time since the crash on that long ago road. We hear about the history of the towns involved, from Amherst, Hanson, and Weymouth. He gives a great little history of each one of them, and how the creepiness kind of ensues throughout them. And then Mr. Renner tries to recreate Maura's journey from Amherst to the White Mountains. I recreated Maura's journey into the North Country. When I crossed the border into New Hampshire, I unscrewed the top of a Jameson bottle and emptied it into a half can of Coke, started drinking, and began to look for the exit that would take me into the Haverhill and the part of the Matrix that held Maura's secret. Who's not turning the page after that? We're heading into another dimension, folks, beyond sight and sound. 10. Hacking the universe. He talks about the theory that we're just all living in a matrix and how scientists think that this is probably plausible. And if that's the case, little glitches in the matrix are seen from time to time. Did mauramurray vanish into thin air, for example? Well, we know she did. If you love driving like I do, his words are so evocative. Like on page 40, last bit of red sun sneaking down. On page 41, the road is 2 lanes of blacktop, twisty along the mountain valley with the Mindshock River trails beside the northern shoulder. It was dark, real dark by the time I got there. I checked the clock, 6:49. That was strange. I had left Amherst as late as the police figured Maura could have departed, but I had arrived here about 40 minutes before the time of her accident. A mystery. She must have stopped somewhere. This is on-the-ground journalism, detective work, and we're along for the ride in this book. Page 55, we hear that John Healy had investigated Butch Atwood, the bus driver who last saw Maura. I personally think he's way up on the suspect list. Murder, suicide, faking her own death are all explored. On page 52, Detective Scawenza recounts another mysterious event. Regardless, Scawenza said that the hills and valleys around Mount Washington were a good place to get lost. He recalled a case from early in his career when a woman from Massachusetts drove into the mountains and left a note behind saying she was going to kill herself. Fish and Game did an extensive search but couldn't find her. 7 years later, a hiker stepped off the path to take a leak and found her skeleton. She had sat down on a log, taken a bunch of pills, and then fallen backwards onto the ground. I think something similar happened to Maura. I know Mr. Renner kind of disagrees. On page 68, the often cited line about Maura and her sister running laps on Christmas Day is said here by Beth Druniak, Maura's friend's mum. So it's nice to see the original source for some of these things that have become legend. More interviews throughout the book, greatly described, and each one either contradicting something or harking back to something that reinforces a perspective. Mr. Renner goes into his personal life, about his kids, his wife, his childhood, almost getting kidnapped at 13 in the park. And that incident is chilling. I didn't think anyone would be the same again after that. After that happening to you as a kid. Then there's a case of his grandfather, which, I don't know, I would have liked to have not read about. He got arrested for contempt of court and assaulting an officer. Is he a ticking time bomb, Mr. Renner? Or does he like the adventurous side of life? Between the lines, you can read that Mr. Renner suspects that Maura's friend, Kate Markopoulos, was the driver of another vehicle, the tandem driver that picked up Maura at the crash site and took her away. Because he mentions that she disappeared at around the same time as Maura from track meetups. Where was she? What was she doing? And then on page 117, we have Mr. Renner talking about Kate Markopoulos, When I asked her about her best friend, she kept it vague. She took care of her stuff on her own. That's Maura. So, the one thing that Kate told James, Maura takes care of herself, things on her own. Now, if I was like a psychologist, I would suggest that she is diverting. She helped Maura, and if she helped Maura escape, she would say something like, she took care of stuff on her own. Just food for thought. Or maybe it's true. Maybe Maura was very independent, and on a whim drove north to get away from it all, not forever, just momentarily. She wasn't thinking about the far-flung future. She was just thinking of getting away. We delve down every rabbit hole with Mr. Renner here. No stone is left unturned. And what rabbit holes they are. The visit to Fred Murray's house is shocking. In the mail he finds some Penthouse magazines. In them is photographs, just put in there, of some of Maura's cousins, younger girls. And then later, on page 137, says that Maura was responsible for the hit and run of Petite Vossi. And then she had to stage another accident to account for the damage to the front of the car. In response to this post, a commentator who went by Observer wrote, "This is common knowledge in certain circles of people who are close to the family." The moderator of GeoCities forum wanted to find out who Observer was because she had information about Maura disappearing and that Fred's not a nice guy. So she contacted a CPA with a background in computers, James Lenore, who knew how to trace IP addresses, traced Observer's post to a computer in Taunton, Massachusetts. There was a topics page devoted to Maura's disappearance, looking for anyone posting from the Taunton area. One avatar stuck out. She posted under the moniker City Girl and claimed to be related to Maura. Were Catgirl and Observer the same person? If so, who was it? Well, hold on to your butts. The City Girl avatar was linked to a woman named Patty Davidson, maiden name Curran. Patricia Curran was one of the young girls in the photographs I had found in the adult magazine at Fred's house in Weymouth. So the people in this case keep popping up in other areas of investigation. I think at this point, James Renner's blog, he's now closed it, but I think at the time it became the Observer effect. Him observing the case made him part of the case. So then it was no longer unbiased. Clues, clues, and more clues. Like this Stop and Shop card found in Maura's car on page 234. Mr. Renner found a Facebook page for Richard 1000 and sent him an email asking about the strange way Maura's shopping cart linked back to one of his old email accounts. I noted that his profile showed a photograph of a dog instead of a face. That's odd in this hyper social media era, but not that odd. He got back to me immediately. Very interesting. I did attend a meeting at UMass shortly after graduating from nursing school in 2003. I was there for approximately a week and signed for a card at the Stop and Shop close to where I was staying because they had some money off on gas. Of course, while there I talked to several nurses attending the university, and I do remember talking quite some time with a girl who fits Maura's profile from your website. We were both runners, and I grew up in upstate New York and camped and hiked many of the same areas that she had in New Hampshire. So this guy met Maura. So the implication is that she took his Stop and Shop card, and that's why his email address was linked to it. But then he admits that he made the whole thing up. Another dead end. He had seen the card online and then had attached his email address to it, and that's why his email address is attached to the card. What a dead end. So by the end, we know a whole lot more about Maura, but no more idea of where she is right now. I think she's up in the mountains, no longer with us, living, that is, of course, always in the legend. There's a chapter in the end called Closure is for Doors, but this book provided me with closure. It fills a lot of the need I have to solve the mystery. I'm ready to walk away from the case now. It's way more comprehensive than any blog or even podcast is. I recommend it entirely. And Mr. Renner comes off as a likable, smart, and even funny guy. Thanks for watching. Next time, we're going to handle the even more mysterious book called Grug Builds a Car. Join me then. And as for now, I once made an animated short about the disappearance of Mauramurray, because I think it's up there with like D.B. Cooper and stuff. It was called In Search of Mauramurray. Have a look at it now. Hooroo.